Okay, the next section we're going to talk about are FirstThen cards. FirstThen cards are really powerful as you start to teach visual supports, because we have to teach our kids, our students, to attend to the visuals that we're putting in front of them. And this is a powerful way to get that started. So if you have a student that may not really be tuning in to the visual supports in their classroom, tune into this, because this might be something that supports you. So benefits of using a FirstThen card: it makes your instructions visual. That's a really powerful point when you think about our students, from a student that may be pretty severely impacted by autism or multiple disabilities, all the way up to our students with an attention deficit. Instructions are transient. It happens and it's over. Go wash your hands. That didn't even take a second. When you use a visual like a FirstThen, first wash your hands, then we're going to lunch. That message is right there until you take it away. So making the instructions visual is very powerful. It assists with teaching the schedule. So like I said, if your student's not really tuning into their environment quite yet to all the visuals that you've made for them, this strategy will help you teach your schedule. It teaches the concept of time, order, and multiple steps. This is a very simple, first we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, but it can grow. It can grow to be, first we're going to work, then we're going to go line up, then we're going to go to lunch. So you can grow this over time, and it increases compliance. When you work with a FirstThen card, it is a strategy that we often use with students that are struggling behaviorally, so that they can see, if you can just live through this one activity, you're going to get the computer, or you're going to get to go and use your fidgets or your sensory toys. So you increase compliance in that way, because it's a promise, right? If you do a little work, you're going to get access to the things that you want. So here's an example of a FirstThen card where they've got, we're going to do some work and then you're going to get your reinforcer. Same thing here. They don't have to be complex. That's another thing that I want you guys to think about as we go through this training. You don't have to have a fancy picture system. If you want some suggestions for picture systems, we definitely have those in resources sections, but you can draw on, a FirstThen takes 2 seconds to draw, like the one you see at the bottom. This one's got Legos on it because that's what's interesting to this particular student. So increasing, the use of it by making it a little bit more interesting to the student. And this is one of my favorites because it can go anywhere with you. And you've got a couple of those to show. I'll let you go ahead.
Sure. I have a couple other examples. And like Rebecca said, just putting it in a pencil pouch is a great way to make it much more portable. And there's a piece of paper in this one just to, so you can't see through the front, and then you can keep all the visuals inside. And those can be, I use them per station. Each station had one so that it was ready to go. I've also seen people use them for various or specific students. So things that specific student liked, and pieces of their schedule, activities on their schedule was inside their pouch.
I don't know if you've ever had a kiddo that did not enjoy coming inside from recess. And so sometimes just the line up was like, right, I'm going to go to the farthest corner and you're going to spend the next 5 minutes chasing me. And so having that outside at recess was really supportive with some of my students as I was teaching them to come in. So first we're going to line up and then we're going to go do something great. But I could talk them through that visual instead of saying line up, and it kind of flipped the script a little bit. So it was very supportive as an antecedent strategy, right? Like getting out in front of what I knew was going to be some problem behavior.
And this one is super simple. It's just a manila file folder that's been laminated. FirstThen was drawn on in Sharpie, and then you have room inside to store your pictures. You could also put Velcro on the back to store pictures. So whatever you needed there. And then this one is just a simple FirstThen, but I wanted to show that on the back was the token board, the penny board. So you could also kind of double duty and put it on the back of something else that you use.
Absolutely.
And those can be, I use them per station. Each station had one so that it was ready to go. I've also seen people use them for various or specific students. So things that that specific student liked, and pieces of their schedule, activities on their schedule was inside their pouch.
I don't know if you've ever had a kiddo that did not enjoy coming inside from recess. And so sometimes just the line up was like, right, I'm going to go to the farthest corner and you're going to spend the next 5 minutes chasing me. So having that outside at recess was really supportive with some of my students as I was teaching them to come in. So first we're going to line up and then we're going to go do something great. But I could talk them through that visual instead of saying line up, and it kind of flipped the script a little bit. So it was very supportive in as an antecedent strategy, right? Like getting out in front of what I knew was going to be some problem behavior.
And this one is super simple. It's just a manila file folder that's been laminated. FirstThen was drawn on in Sharpie, and then you have room inside to store your pictures. You could also put Velcro on the back to store pictures. So whatever you needed there. And then this one is just a simple FirstThen, but I wanted to show that on the back was the token board, the penny board. So you could also kind of double duty and put it on the back of something else that you use.
Absolutely. So teaching FirstThen. Start with two things that are preferred. So first we're going to blow some bubbles and then we're going to go have a snack, because we're teaching this structure, this FirstThen concept, but there's no adversive, right? So there's no point where the kid's going to be like, not happening. You've got something that they're interested in both places. That's a key. If you're having some struggle teaching FirstThen, or you've tried it maybe with work, then something preferred and that wasn't successful, go back and try it again with two preferred items and teach it that way. And once they get going with it and understand, then you can generalize it to your work tasks. So you need multiple exposures with your FirstThen. If it was working with a student, I took it everywhere. I'm a fan of wearing aprons in the classroom, and I would have my FirstThen cards in my pocket. Talk them through it. Just like Daleen was saying earlier, we're teaching, right? Like these are supports, but we're teaching constantly. So talking them through how to use it. Then another option is to let the students choose the then. And so if you have one of the systems that Daleen was showing where there's pictures in the pencil pouch or inside the folder on a choice wheel, like, okay, we're at yellow, first work, but then what are you going to do? And let them choose. And sometimes that student choice is really powerful. And the reminder here is super important too. It's like making a promise. You have just entered a contract with a child. If you don't honor the then, you're going to lose traction with this strategy very fast. So if it's on there, that's your contract, and you're going to have to make sure that you're delivering on that. So if challenging behavior occurs, because it will, first thing you're going to do is prompt the student to complete the task. And we're focusing on the task and not the behavior. So if the student's, knocking some stuff off or piddling around trying to get you to talk about whatever they're doing and not the work, stay on that work. Don't be distracted by junk behavior. Stay right there with them. And it might be that you need to reduce what you're asking them to do. Because if they're successful in that moment, maybe you didn't get all 5 things done, but you got one thing done successfully, and then you worked through the FirstThen, then you've had success with that strategy. And that's so important because you can grow these things, but you have to start out successful. I always tell teachers, I want to be the best thing since grandma. When you see me coming, I want you to think a bunch of good stuff is about to happen to you. So focusing on that task, helping them get through it, reading it, providing the reinforcement is super important. And then also limiting your talking. You can go back and just remind the student, well, I can't grab it, but first we're doing this, then we're doing this. And that doesn't mean stand in the hall. I've seen this before, over a student and be like, that's not going to work. They're going to continue to lay on the floor and flop around. So think about what supports does the student need to get through this so that they can get to the then. And so I do use it to limit talking whenever there is challenging behavior. All right.
Before I move on, Rebecca mentioned aprons, which I know everyone loves to hear us say wear an apron in your classroom. But I wanted to talk about that for a minute because there are, with visual supports, when we talk about reinforcement, there are a lot of pieces. And how do you keep track of that? So wearing an apron is one really great way to keep track of that. You can get like waitress aprons, is that what they're called? That are black. I ordered one on Amazon. Those are easy to use and they have lots of pockets, which are helpful. Lowe's sells some little cream colored aprons that you can use as well. You can order them on Etsy, or if you're really handy, you can probably make one yourself. Here's my favorite one that I ordered on Etsy.
Pockets.
Has lots of pockets. And when I walked through the school with this, people would say, hey, where'd you get that? Like other teachers, general education teachers. And I'm like, oh, well, I bought it off Etsy. Does it look great? You know, it didn't always match everything I wore, but that's okay. I had all my stuff when I needed it. And so that's really the takeaway, is to have the things you need when you need them. And sometimes that means doing something that we as adults wouldn't necessarily love to do, but it helps us to have our materials ready.
The aprons are a hard sell in the beginning,
really are.
But once teachers and support staff get used to wearing them, and sometimes people wear scrubs, the point is have stuff with you. Don't leave the room without all the supports that you need. But I love an apron.
And make it fun. If you don't like it, put bling on it, whatever, puff paint, whatever makes you happy. That's a throwback to the 90s. Make it fun for you.